Hi everybody. So in the previous video, I showed you one of the student essays, rhetorical analyses on Susan Harjo's Last Rites for Indian Dead. And now I'm going to show you the other one. We're going to go through this one a little more quickly than the first one since I was setting up a lot of things in that first video. This is the stronger of the two, and there are a couple of reasons why that is. First and foremost, if you remember from the last video, I mentioned that one of the things you want to be very careful not to do in your own rhetorical analysis is engage in personal response. But another thing that you need to be very watchful for is the specificity of your analysis. In other words, I want you to be very thoughtful about using very clear and specific examples from the essay that you're analyzing, but in conjunction with specific topic sentences. In other words, you need to pick very clear and specific strategies or techniques, rhetorical strategies or techniques that you can then connect to very specific examples from the text itself. And part of the problem with the previous essay was a tendency to talk about ethos, logos, and pathos. In other words, to talk about the appeals, but not specific strategies that are attached to those appeals, and in turn use particular and very specific examples from the essay itself. Now, No More Dave Desecration is not an A-level paper, but it is a fairly solid B, B-. There are things that could have been done better, but it's still a good example, something to give us something to work with essentially. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the things that are working. Again, remembering that basically I just want to take a few minutes to talk about things that you want to do and things that you don't want to do. So again, a reminder that with your introduction, a structured attention getter is going to be really useful. And this is something that this particular essay does a little bit better than the previous essay. As you can see, there is a sort of an attention getter, but it is still kind of on the general side. So again, think very carefully about a structured and specific attention getter that you think will work really well with the essay that you're analyzing. It could be a quote from the essay itself. It could be some statistical information about the issue that you found doing some additional research. It could be some anecdotal experience that connects yourself to the issue, though that would be something I'd probably caution against since we want to keep you, the writer of the analysis, out of the equation. So just again, think really carefully about your attention getter and what you want to use. Remember too that I want you to provide a structured formal introduction of the article that you're analyzing, and she is halfway there. She just doesn't provide the place it was published in and when it was published. Then remember too that you want a very clear thesis statement. Now her thesis statement is a little bit better than the last one, but it's still on the general side. When she says Harjo uses her knowledge of her audience, she is moving in the right direction in terms of a possible strategy, but uses her knowledge of her audience is still kind of vague. I'm not entirely sure what she means by that. So that could have used some specification, some clarification, as could the next thing where she says logical reasoning. What exactly do you mean by that? Is it hard statistical evidence, a clearly developed argument that is organized in a very kind of rational way? I mean, I'm not sure what she means. So that's something you really want to think about, and why I really strongly recommend that you leave your thesis statement till the very end, till after you've done a lot of writing about the actual essay itself in terms of its rhetorical strategies and techniques. So if we move on, because I want to wrap this up in a couple of minutes, let's take a quick look at her summary. And one of the things that I think works best with her summary is that she takes a little more time than the previous essay did. She provides a more complete picture of the main arguments and ideas in the essay that she's analyzing. So again, this is an important reminder that, excuse me, that you provide a full picture of the article that you're summarizing with, again, a specific focus on the major ideas and not how they're talking about the major ideas. Be really careful and make that distinction between the ideas that are being presented and then how they're being presented, because you don't want to give too much extraneous detail. Now, if we move on to the actual rhetorical analysis paragraphs, her topic sentences are kind of, I don't know, some work, some don't. The first one doesn't really work that well. If you look at it, many citizens and government members, due to her ability to appeal to her audience, answered Harjo's call. I, on the one hand, don't know what she means by that, and on the other hand, she's not correct at all. She's assuming that Harjo's essay, her op-ed, elicited a significant response. She doesn't say how she knows that, and it isn't really clear as to how that has to do with the appealing to the audience. So her topic sentence needs a lot of work here. She's talking about a strategy that involves pathos. She needs to identify that strategy first. And she gets there in the second sentence. That's the sentence that's closer to what we need to see when she talks about using a story that is personable. So what, again, you need to remember is that it's very specific strategies that you need to identify and not making general or broad statements. If we continue down and look at the last few paragraphs of this essay, again, her topic sentences kind of have the idea that they need to, but sometimes end up being a little more general. For those in Harjo's audience that are not convinced by simply asking for sympathy, she offers some cold, hard facts that help back up her argument and make it seem legitimate. So we know that she's moving into talking about logos, and she even kind of identifies a strategy, a technique, cold, hard facts. But again, she could be more specific. What really works about this topic sentence, though, is that she's thinking about transitions. She's thinking about what she talked about in the previous paragraph and what she's moving into in this paragraph. And so that's one of the things that works in this essay that is missing in the previous essay. What she needs to do here, and what would have strengthened this particular paragraph, is to be more specific about what she means by cold, hard facts. What verifiable, statistical, hard evidence sort of information does she give? Something that we've been talking about previously. So just to wrap up, let's take a look at the last two paragraphs. Notice that she again talks about logic in her second to last paragraph, but what's interesting is that she's actually technically talking about ethos. She's talking about the sources, the people that Harjo connects to in her argument that help to enhance her credibility. So there is a bit of a problem there. And again, notice that she's talking about pathos, logos, ethos. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to just go, well, they use logos in their argument. Remember, if I have to keep repeating it until it's all you think about in your dreams, that's fine with me. Specific strategies, specific techniques, not broad references to ethos, logos, and pathos. Talk about the specific thing that they do, expert testimony, whatever it is. That's what she needs to do here, but she's not. He's also, again, confusing logos for ethos. And so that is a big problem. This is probably the biggest problem paragraph of this entire essay. And then as we get to the conclusion, well, actually, we've got one more paragraph. I thought we only had the conclusion yet. So she talks about credibility some more. So again, she thinks about links from paragraph to paragraph. That's good. But what she's doing previously is not necessarily logos. It is ethos. And she repeats herself a bit here. And so these two paragraphs probably could have been combined more effectively, trim out some things that she didn't need and focus more on what Harjo does to enhance her own ethos. When we get to the conclusion, remember some of the things I said in the previous video, that you want to be very specific. You want to be careful not to repeat your thesis statement word for word. And in particular, use some of what I suggested in terms of thinking back to the rhetorical situation, to the ways in which the essay is enhanced in terms of kairos and doxa, or thinking about the connections to the audience. But be specific and take a little more time than just 2 sentences, as you see here, to bring your essay to a close. So these are just a couple of quick examples of what you can see in terms of how rhetorical analysis looks, but keep in mind especially the things I've told you to do as well as not to do in your own essay. If you have any questions as you're starting to build your essay, of course, make sure to email me, and I look forward to reading what you've got.